My story begins when we moved into that creaky old house on the edge of town. It was one of those narrow Victorian terraces, all peeling paint and drafty windows. The kind you see in every forgotten corner of England. Me, Kayla, my brother Ben, his mate Noah, our cousin Zia, and that moody git Samuel. We were knackered from hauling boxes all day. The place smelled of damp and dust, but it was ours. A fresh start after Mom and Dad passed. I reckon we were all just trying to hold it together, you know? Bloody hell. This place is a tip, I said, kicking a loose floorboard as we dumped the last of the boxes in the lounge. The wallpaper was this hideous mustard color, curling at the edges like it was trying to escape. Could be worse, Ben shrugged, wiping sweat off his brow. At least it's got a roof. Barely, Noah muttered, peering up at the stained ceiling. Reckon that'll cave in by next week. Samuel didn't say a word, just stormed off upstairs with that ink bottle he's weirdly precious about. He'd been off since we got here, snapping at us, slamming doors. I thought he was just knackered, but Zia reckoned it was more than that. He's hiding something, she whispered to me later, her dark eyes flicking toward his room. The first night was quiet enough. I crashed on a lumpy mattress in the back bedroom, the wind howling outside like a banshee. Mom used to tell us stories about those, wailing spirits warning of death. I brushed it off as daft folklore back then, but lying there in the dark, it didn't feel so daft anymore. Next morning, things started getting weird. I was making tea in the kitchen, proper British cure for everything, when I heard this faint scratching, like nails on wood, coming from the cupboard under the sink. "Oi, you lot hear that?" I called out. But Ben and Noah were too busy arguing over whose turn it was to unpack the telly. I opened the cupboard, half expecting a rat, but it was empty, just cobwebs and a whiff of mold. The scratching stopped, sharp-like, the second I looked. My hands went clammy, and I shut the door quick. Probably nothing, I told myself, but my voice wobbled a bit. That afternoon, Zia found the ink bottle on Samuel's desk, cap off, a black puddle seeping into the wood. "What the hell's this about?" she shouted, holding it up. Samuel wasn't around. He'd buggered off somewhere, so we just stared at it, uneasy. "He's losing it," Ben said, but I wasn't so sure. The air felt heavy, like someone was watching us. By night 2, the house turned proper sinister. I was brushing my teeth when the mirror fogged up. No steam, no reason, just this thick mist creeping over the glass. My reflection blurred, and then, Christ, I swear, something moved behind me. A shadow, tall and thin, darting across the wall. I spun round, heart hammering, but the bathroom was empty. My toothbrush clattered into the sink, and I legged it downstairs, voice trembling as I yelled, "Did anyone just come up here?" Noah poked his head out of the lounge, frowning. "Nah, we're all down here, mate. You all right?" "No, I bloody well ain't." I snapped, my chest tight. "There's summit in this house, I'm telling you." They didn't believe me at first. Ben even took the piss, saying I'd watched too many horror films. But then the noises started. Thumps from upstairs, like heavy boots stomping across the floorboards. We'd check every time and find nothing. Just Samuel's room. Door shut tight. That ink bottle sitting there like it was mocking us. Day 3, it got worse. I was in the kitchen again. Bloody hell, that room hated me. When the lights flickered, not just a quick buzz, but a slow, deliberate pulse, like the house was breathing. Then the tap turned on by itself, full blast, spewing this murky brown water that stank of rot. I stumbled back, yelling, "Turn it off! Someone turn it off!" But no one was near it. Noah rushed in, pale as a ghost, and twisted the knob. It stopped, but the smell lingered, thick and wrong. "We need to get out," Zia whispered, her voice shaking. "This isn't normal, Kayla. It's like a boggart or summit." "A what?" Ben scoffed, but he looked rattled too. "You know, from the old stories," she said. "Trickster spirits. Mom used to say they mess with you, move stuff, scare you, till you leave their patch. Bollocks, Samuel muttered, stomping in from wherever he'd been sulking. You're all mental. Then explain this, I shouted, pointing at the sink. He just glared, clutching that stupid ink bottle like it was his lifeline. That night, I couldn't sleep. The air was icy, even with the radiator on full blast. I was dozing off when I heard it, whispering, low and fast, right by my ear. Get out! Get out! My eyes snapped open and I froze. There, at the foot of my bed, was a figure, gray, hunched, with hollow eyes staring straight through me. I screamed, proper blood-curdling, and it vanished. Ben burst in, baseball bat in hand, but the room was empty again. I saw it, I gasped, tears stinging my eyes. I bloody saw it. He hugged me tight, and for once, he didn't take the mick. We're sorting this, Cal, I promise. Next morning, we confronted Samuel. He was in the lounge, scribbling in some old notebook with that ink. What's with the bottle, mate? Noah demanded. You've been weird since we got here. It's none of your sodding business, he snarled, but Zia snatched the notebook off him. The pages were full of jagged writing, words like leave and mine, over and over. The ink glistened, wet, like it had just been written. You brought this here, didn't you? Zia said, her voice rising. Whatever's in this house, it's tied to you. Samuel lunged for the book, but Noah held him back. Talk, you twat, or we're binning it. All right, he yelled, slumping onto the sofa. It's from my granddad. He said it was cursed, some old family thing. I didn't believe him, thought it was just a story. But since we moved in, it's been alive. Alive? I echoed, my stomach dropping. It writes on its own, he muttered, not meeting our eyes. Tells me to make you lot leave. I didn't want to, I swear, but it won't stop. We stared at him, gobsmacked. Then the lights flickered again, and a low growl rumbled through the walls. The ink bottle tipped over, spilling across the floor, and the liquid twisted into words. All of you. Bin it, Ben said, voice hard. Now. Samuel hesitated, but I grabbed the bottle and ran outside, chucking it into the wheelie bin. The second it hit the bottom, the house shook. Windows rattling, floorboards groaning, like it was furious. We huddled together, terrified, waiting for it to stop. And it did, eventually. The air lightened, the chill faded, and the growling died away. We didn't sleep much after that, packed up what we could, and legged it to a mate's flat the next day. Samuel barely spoke, guilt all over his face. I wanted to throttle him. But he's family, isn't he? You don't give up on family, even when they've dragged a bloody curse into your life. Last I heard, the house is still empty. No one stays long. Say it feels off, like something's waiting. Me, I reckon it's that boggart, or whatever it was, sulking without its ink. I still hear those whispers sometimes, in the dark. But I tell myself, it's just the wind. Just the wind, yeah? God, I hope so.